What's going on, everybody? We're back another week just talking ball, here to recap Big 12 and SEC football games and talk about other trending things going on in the world of college football. None other, I got my boy with me, Eric, to join me. What's going on, Eric?
What's going on, man?
Well, you know, in life, there are challenges, and, you know, I think the words like love and commitment, sometimes life makes you show and prove, as they say.
100%.
So that's I'm at that road, on those roads, if you will. Now, one word I'm not gonna say, doubt or conditional. Those words don't exist, but I'm human, so it's gonna affect me emotionally. Because damn it, I am frustrated. And I think you jinxed me last week when you said, oh, I'm a mad person when the Jayhawks aren't winning. Well, he here now, and it's just I'm so frustrated because I care, and it's just, oh Lord. And then we'll talk about it in a minute. Something else I saw that really grinds my gears as a ex college football player, and just the world and the times we live in today. And man, but how you feeling, man? How's your week? How was your weekend?
Oh, hey, just cruising altitude over here, man. Life is good. You don't want to get too high. You don't want to get too low, because obviously, what you're feeling, I've felt before. Where you've been, I've been before.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
all I can
man.
tell you what,
Yeah.
when you're in struggles in life, and some days you want to hear, some days you won't, but it gets better.
Yeah, yeah. It's just hard to see, right now. But nevertheless, we're gonna get right into it. So, man, as usual, we're gonna jump into a trending topic, NIL. Some of you may already know where we're going with this. A lot of breaking news today about what's going on in the world of college football as far as NILs and terms like red shirts, not medical because of injury, but just voluntary. So we'll get into that. We'll recap the Texas ULM game where I don't even know where all that trash talking went, because it disappeared fast in that game. The Kansas West Virginia game, we'll get into a chalk talk. We got some plays of the week and predictions for next week, man. So, let's jump right into the trending topic of NIL, man. And I'll kind of lead off. I woke up this morning, and the first thing that was on my feed, Twitter, Instagram, everything, is Matthew Sluka is leaving UNLV because NIL promises or the obligations weren't met. So he's redshirting, and then maybe an hour or two later, the running back or a running back did the same thing. And then, there's been mixed stories, or conflicting, if you will, stories about the reasons for Sluka redshirting and obviously going somewhere else. And there's so many views you can take from this. I mean, as far as like, how would a teammate feel? How would a coach feel? Depending on what coach it is, who was involved in those negotiations, and just even, and I don't. It's so much, and I'm so bothered by it. It could even almost tie into what I'm mad about. But like, when you start talking about college football kids and agents, and and then parents hiring the agent to this person, and there's good people that are agents, but like, it's just sometimes, I know the world is changing, NIL is here to stay. That's fine. But just like the portal we talked about, it has to be regulated, because at the end of the day, these are kids. They still make emotional decisions, just like adults do, But I mean, kids make emotional, decisions, and sometimes you can't make these decisions because there's no going back. There's no retest, test corrections, retry. That's the world we're living in today, and consequences, or like, oh, we shouldn't punish them because what? We don't want to teach them life lessons. I mean, when money's involved, I hate to, money, that's a grown up man's game. And, you start talking about business and, how you doing? Put my arm around you. Let me make sure, you feel like you want to hear. They done paid you this money. Some of that sometimes goes away. Not to say that you don't care about the kids, but it's a business, and you signed your name to the dotted line. So I'll let you, comment on it, but I've got a couple of things I've seen and heard about it. So tell me what you think about the whole Sluka thing at UNLV to begin with.
So I've got a couple of thoughts. Some overlap. Some may seem conflicting, but in my mind, all are true. One, I've been on the NIL train for a long time, because I believe in fundamental fairness.
Mhm.
And if schools are making billions off of these athletes, then the athletes absolutely should be able to participate
Mhm.
in that. I think you had a different view because you came from a world where it wasn't possible.
Mhm.
Now in this new world where it is, it feels kind of yucky to you. I saw a clip that kind of probably harkens back to this, but like there's a clip of women like, or not a clip, but maybe quotes, because I don't even think video cameras were around back then, but like how women talked about women getting the right to vote right after they
Oh,
got the
wow.
right to, and some women were like, we shouldn't be voting, women shouldn't
Yeah.
have, so it kind of feels like that because it's still new.
Yeah.
So
And it's
one,
kind of
I
wild to
still,
me, I guess. I just
yeah.
wanted it within a framework,
So
like
I
just,
so I think we're headed towards that, and I think
Mhm.
these kinds of things speed that up,
No doubt.
where we get to revenue sharing, where we get to a set. If you are a scholarship athlete at this position, this is what you get. If
Mhm.
you're a scholarship athlete at this position, this is what you get. And there will be different tiers, right? Because out of
Mhm.
Texas, out of Georgia, out of Alabama, there's more money than there is at a Tulane.
Yeah.
That's just life. The
Yeah.
haves are going to keep having.
Exactly.
Second thought is I know what I would do if my job stopped paying me, or if my job didn't pay me what they promised me. I know what I would do.
Yeah.
So I agree with Suk on that. Where the points kind of separate a little bit, and what may be tough for kids in that caliber to hear is you just weren't that good. It is
Yeah.
kind of what it boils down to,
Yeah.
because magically, because it, and for those at home who maybe don't quite understand how some of the NIL works, is because of NCAA rules, you cannot technically use NIL as an inducement to recruit or retain a student athlete. Technically. So
Technically.
it can't, so you can't commit it to paper.
Yeah.
But schools can also make verbal pitches to
Yeah.
student athletes of what they should expect
P-
on
and
the
and
NIL
potentials.
market
Yeah, and potentials.
at this
Mhm.
school, right?
Mhm.
So how it worked in Sluka's case is he was told by the coaches, this is what you could expect around $100,000,
Mhm.
right, to play quarterback at UNLV. That's what it's worth. Then you get here, then you go through training camp, and they keep kicking it off. So, alarm bells should have started to go off maybe a little bit earlier for him and the family and the agents. But you're locked in now because the transfer window, all this. And you only complete 38% of your passes. The team is winning probably in spite of, and he's quick of feet, so he certainly helps, but UNLV probably believes they can go on, and they probably believe they'd be 3-0 without him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because UNLV now was on that short list to make the playoff.
Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
So
Yep.
if you think about what a playoff is worth to the coaches, each of
Yeah.
them individually, you think about what it's worth to the football program, you think about what it's worth for the school writ large.
Mhm.
If they thought that Sluka was the difference between making the playoff and potentially not,
They would have had it tight. They would have had everything tight.
that they would have came up with $200,000.
Yeah. And yeah.
And that's so, we reach an unfortunate conclusion for the student athletes that some of them will just find you're not that good.
Yeah. And
And
you said it, and you said that was worth the playoff appearance, all that. And like they said for the coaches, like if Coach Odom is making a run for another Power 5 job, or
what's that
if
worth?
the OC,
Right?
yeah, like all that, all that plays, and like, and I understand all that, and I know stuff gets mixed up, and other forces driving those NIL deals or opportunities, if you will. But like you say, I think somebody called out his numbers, 46% completion rate, all this and that. And like, like I say, you're not that good. But when you're the competitor and you're the quarterback, and personally watching the Kansas game where he extended plays and made big plays and ultimately led them to a win. It's hard for me being me saying I'm Sluka to not feel that I'm worth that, or you should live up to that, or you should say, hey, let's amend something to say it's coming to keep me, keep me there or whatever. But once again, I hate that this is even a conversation as far as like, because like it's you talked about, like, you made the example about if your job stopped paying you, and I think it's funny because I will sound a little antiquated because I did play college football in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it's like the driving force then just in America or just coming up in society is you're getting your school paid for. And right there in that alone, we're still in that small number of people that get to go to play college football on a full scholarship. So people that want to, have advanced educations, whatever, they had to work, they had to pay for it. And so that in itself was like, okay, take advantage. That's big. You're getting your top class University of Texas, University of Kansas education paid for. So now when education and sports is starting to kind of pull from each other, and football obviously always been its own entity, but it's like now people starting to look like, well, golly. And I can use myself an example, and I'm aging myself here. You remember East Bay, the magazine that sold,
Still around.
yes, I didn't even know it's still around, shoes, jerseys, all that. Well, at the time, at certain times in Kansas, my jersey was being sold, and I guess, like you say, you only know what you know, and as we grow and we're exposed to more, better, you do better, you can make better decisions. But I was just happy for that to be in the store, like I play with number 22. So when you look in the stands, I know who they're representing, but did I get paid for that? No,
So it was a world where athletes didn't have control.
Yeah.
And I would say the only counterpoint I'd have to that is I don't know that just simply relying on my schools getting paid for is enough, because 40% of the students on campus are getting scholarship money for something. Academics, band, they are part of a research group. They're part of, whatever, some unique, some not.
Yeah.
But what is also true about those kids are there's not $1 billion industry built on their back.
And that's the crossover, and I understand that, and I see both sides 100%. Totally see it, because Tim Tebow made Florida, helped them win that championship, but he was also a driving force as far as popularity, different markets of exposure, just a name like that helped sell more Florida, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Your opinion may change, because if Reggie Bush wins his lawsuit, you may have some money coming your way for all the unpaid marketing work and all the unpaid stuff you did back in the day.
You never know. And that's going to be another topic we can talk about on the next show. But yeah, and you're right. But, and so like, I see all that, but it goes back to like, that's so complicated right now. And these kids to be dealing with that. And now, so I'm just going to,
it's only complicated though. And I think it's really important I'm big on accountability, and when I'm wrong, rare, it's a rarity, albeit, but I try to be big on when I am wrong. Oh, damn, I was wrong, because I'm really big the opposite way on accountability. So as we point out these problems and all these problems become more obvious, we got to tie back to the only reason this is as difficult as it is because the NCAA refused to get on the right side of this.
Yeah.
They had years to know this was coming. It was no longer theory. It was no longer a hope. They knew for years that this was coming, and they still chose not to get out in front of it. Thus, sow all this chaos that we will incrementally see as time goes on. But I do ultimately think the finished product will, because I think some of the things we've seen this year, one of the big things was, 12 teams is going to kill college sports and whatnot. It's not the same, and it feels like professional. Not really. College still feels like college
on Saturdays when we're watching it.
Yeah.
and in the atmospheres.
But you're still passionate about it because because there is no clear path other than those select few teams that know, right, year in year out. It's going to be really hard for, and Alabama probably knows if they don't lose 3 games, they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Georgia probably knows they don't lose 3 games, they're going to be in the playoffs. And that all, you know, it's probably about 8 different teams, and 5 to 8 different teams in the country that can say that going into every year. So for all of these other schools, every game does matter.
Yeah. Okay, so I pose this question. You talked about, accountability and, being, whoever that is, a man of their word, living up to the, obligations or the promises or promissory, whatever words you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
You sign a kid, doesn't pan out, stinking it up, can't play him, can't trust him. Do you just bench him, but he's still on full ride, he's still getting all the benefits of it? Or do you pull his financial scholarship because he is not living up to what we thought he would?
So I think that's a really fair question of where do you, I want to get to a place to where it's equal. So we do continue to have these transfer windows where kids can go in and go out. They have, so I think the best answer is you guarantee the scholarship for the year, and you have to kind of re-guarantee it every year thereafter. What you don't want and what you have to guard against are inevitably those programs, and probably a top program like a Texas or an Alabama or Georgia, that will see better you get a kid, doesn't pan out, so I've got better opportunities on the horizon, so then I'm going to push you out. Right. Yeah. Then I'm going to push you out, and you're going to go somewhere else. So I think, to answer your question, I think the only place where you get to that's really fair is if that kid transfers and you are successfully able to push them out, and they transfer and they go somewhere else, you're good. But if that kid doesn't find another place to go, you're still on the hook for their academic scholarship. Right. Because that tells me a lot of other things too, because naturally kids want to play. You got to know that. So you lead from that thought perspective. So kids going to do everything they can to go somewhere else and play and give themselves the potential. But for that very small number of kids that can't, for whatever reason, you got to protect them too. So I think
but like I said, I think that's a good answer, but I think there's so many smaller versions of Pandora's boxes when it comes into that, because we're talking about schools doing this and that. But then you have the NCAA, sitting here saying you're going to get this number of kids, on scholarship. You've only got this window of a period to talk to kids, contact kids. So it's that, where, yes, this institution may be in a position.
But doesn't that lead to more transparency? Because if I'm a coach, because ultimately this still is recruiting is still centered around trust. Because you're not going to get, every kid's not coming to your program because of money. No.
Because I would like to think at the core of it is because I want to play college football.
And I have seen it. I have met these parents. I know some of these parents. So I have seen that Sark is very accurate when he says, I recruit kids that want to be at Texas, that are our kind of kids that fill a need. And then we just make sure we're competitive in that NIL space. It can't be where a kid can come to Texas and make 100,000, or he can go to Georgia and make $1 million, right? That's because then it doesn't matter that the kid wants to be at Texas. It doesn't matter that the kid is your kind of kid and fits a need. So we still have to be competitive in that space. But I think it leads to more transparency, because if I want to protect my program and my reputation, I'm going to say, David, in our meetings and our exit meetings, it's not working out. I don't see, where you will be able to contribute here as is. And then you, as the athlete, I can go somewhere else. I can choose to stay at Texas on an academic scholarship, so my future is still protected, right? So I don't see how you lose there. And then I also think it's gonna, because again, to a program like Texas, it doesn't matter because you have the money. But there are
Yeah.
programs in that tier 2, tier 3
That
where
won't be an
they
option.
can't afford
Yeah,
that.
that's not an option. Yeah.
So aren't those kids and aren't those coaches still incentivized to develop those kids and
Well,
keep those kids on the
yeah.
roster?
Well, and it's funny. I follow this guy, Dan Casey, who does a great job with, he's a high school coach, I think in Houston at a private school, but great activity on social media. But he made 3 big points. He said, NIL is a band-aid to a broken system. Athletes and programs need to sign contracts with clear terms to protect both parties. Now that's a general statement, which we basically just said that. He said there needs to be multi-year contracts so athletes stay long enough to be developed. Multi-year contracts protects the athletes and will allow coaches to focus on that development instead of constantly scrambling with last-minute roster turnover. And then he says college football should look to move into getting a commissioner if it's going to be in that space as far as,
And I don't think that's a wrong answer either. My only worry with that is you're still going to have the coaches that force the kids out.
Yeah.
Because you're still going to have, because you have misses.
You do,
you have
but
injuries, you have 100 different things.
It's been like that since the beginning of time on scholarship, and a lot of things is funny enough. I think there were before media became so big, like, back in the day, only certain teams were playing on TV. All access wasn't really a thing, and this and that. So you really didn't see the goings on, behind the scenes, locker room, coaches' offices. So I could be a dummy for saying this, or maybe it just wasn't on my radar, but I didn't realize that you had to re-sign your scholarship every year. I went to Kansas and it was like, I'm here for 4 to 5 years. I'm gonna play 4 years. I've got 5 to get my degree, and it is what it is.
Wasn't that a change though? Was it always that you had to sign that? I don't know why I thought that was a change.
I don't know. When I was there, we had to do it, and I just happened to ask, and I read something as I got a little older and a little more mature in the game. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just your scholarship you resign. I said, renewing? I like, what you mean? Oh, well, you got to renew it every year. Now, for kids that aren't really in that space, not to say I was a perfect kid, but I wasn't in that space of questioning, so if, like you say, there's other ways to push kids out. So if I'm an academic risk and I'm constantly maybe on academic probation, or I'm not going to class because there's class checkers, I'm missing tutoring that's being paid for through the athletic department, or, and then I'm not doing anything on the field, that's, you're more of a liability and you're not living up to your obligation as far as like when you were getting recruited, coach, this is what I want to do. Okay, on top of sports or athletics or football, what else do you want to do in life? Because we know the numbers of who makes it post college, whatever. So how are you making it? How is this program going to better you? And what are you going to do to better yourself within this program? Because I've seen it that guys go there and they just sit and they just ride it as long as they can. They don't give a damn. They'll skip. They'll say they hurt. They'll miss, and they just become a slug that's taking up a scholarship spot where there's a walk-on kid who's busting his tail, doing all the things right, trying to earn a scholarship. So like those things are so hard and it's so unique from person to person, program to program. And I don't know, man. I kind of do. And I do think there needs to be a reevaluation period at the end of the year. Not so strenuous of like, you didn't get 1,000 yards this year and you got to go, you lost scholarship, but just within like these.
So in a world of contracts, right? What's the fix? So
that's what I'm saying. I mean, but it's got to be something that's, I think, in college football more generalized as far as like I use the running back example. 1,000 yards. Well, if I'm running behind Texas line, I'm my probability of getting 1,000 yards is going to be a lot higher if I'm running behind. I don't even want to put nobody out there. Somebody ULM's line. I'll just say that's who y'all play. ULM's O line. You know what I'm saying? So, and I could be a better skilled player than that running back at Texas, but I will always say you can't go know about your line. So it's a lot of Pandora's boxes open. And I think, and I told you this last year, I told you these young kids cannot handle this. They cannot handle this type
Well,
of
but I think
obligation and responsibility. And
I
you're messing
think
with
like
grown men's
anything,
money.
but I think like anything in the world, when it's new, you're gonna go through growing pains.
I agree.
I ultimately believe that college football is so important, so dare I say vital to the fabric of the country,
no doubt,
that it will never fail.
Yeah.
You will always get to the right place. How long does it take? How many forms between this and what ends up being the fit? Who knows?
And it's and I get so worked up. Let me calm down and slow down. It upsets me so much when, or the towns we live in. I know the towns we live in, and social media and access, exposure, perception becomes so much more important than the truth and reality. And I say that to say so many people that just don't have the credentials to speak on a lot of things may have a platform or may just have the loudest voice, and they're giving these opinions on how it should be. And you didn't make it out of high school playing. You quit because the coach didn't like you on JV, and I would have started, like you only those kids or those coaches or people that have an open mind to say, you know what, I like to take a walk in the day of a life of a scholarship athlete, because it's not just sitting around in your nice dorm. And your schedule is packed. And I'm not saying it to say an excuse, because to whom much is given, much is required. But I just, I like you say, like if you want to play this game of contracts and money, there's gonna be some cutthroat things. We see it on Hard Knock every year. These GMs are hugging these guys, they're shedding tears with them, but it's a business at the end of the day. And there is a time and place for that. And I still think that this, like you say, there's growing pains, but some of these kids, man.
I just think ultimately you can do both, because even that, what do you go to college for? You go to college to learn, you go to college to grow. So I think there's value in providing the space for kids to make mistakes, or for even some of the adults in their life to make mistakes. One, so that they don't make those mistakes later in life when they really have an outsized impact. I think you can do that as long as you protect the kids' education, because that's the key. That's the future.
And that's the thing.
As long as we protect their education, I think that availability for them to realize that the world is ugly and unfair sometimes, and also that you get an opportunity to make decisions for what you think it's best for you, but you also have to live with those consequences. As long as we continue to give them that safety net, I think that's probably the sweet spot for the sport.
I agree. And you're right. And I do, like I say, protecting the kids, I want them to have all the protection, because they do need that grace. But like I say, when you start talking about contracts,
just their education. Now nobody's entitled to the privilege.
No doubt.
The privilege is playing football at Texas, playing football at Kansas, playing football at wherever. That's the privilege.
Okay, so tell me honestly, 100 kids on a football team. I know there's more. 100 kids on the college football team. Things don't work out. You're not on the team, but your education is still there to go to school, whatever. How many kids stay out of those 100 and really just say, okay, I'm just gonna go to college to get my education, and that's it? No college football. How much is that a driving force? How many kids out of that 100?
As opposed to, to answer the question, a little more context, because
like let's say they put like the.
Are you talking about how many stay and continue their education?
Yeah.
Versus how many drop out completely?
Yes. That's what I'm about to say.
I think
50-50.
I think it's higher than that of kids that stay, because if football is no longer an option, right? On some level, I think you'd be able to reach it. The answer is the percentage of kids that couldn't have made it there anyway without that athletic ability. So whatever that percentage is the answer.
Okay.
And I feel like that number is probably 20, maybe even as high as 30% of those kids that couldn't have made it to a college on their own academically. just on the merits without their athletic ability. So probably about 30% of those kids just say, I'm gonna go do something else because college was never for me. College was just a way to make ends meet or make, give myself a chance.
Yeah.
Because then you also have that other subset of kids. What's the percentage? It's like 3%. 3% of football players make it to the next level, and that's including
which
NFL,
level?
Canadian League, all that. I think
it's I don't know, it's that high.
So
yeah,
a lot of these kids, and the world is getting a lot better educated around what are you doing afterwards?
Yeah.
If one kid out of every college team every year is going to the pros, then those other kids start to figure that out over time. So that's why I still leave room in at 30%, because what's somebody's journey? Have they already realized they're not a Sunday guy?
And
they come into college knowing they're not a Sunday guy?
It becomes an okay thing, because in my mind or in my time, like, damn, you didn't make the NFL, even though we knew what the numbers were, we knew what the probability was, but still, like, damn.
Well, and I think it also changes with every school, because every kid at Georgia, every kid at Alabama, every kid at Texas probably feels like they're a Sunday kid.
Yeah.
And they end up not being. But when you get below that to that next tier, kids at kids at ULM, no, they're not. There aren't any Sunday kids on that roster. Kids at
But at least you got your shot, and and now, like, even if you jump from my time to now, so many more leagues, so many more opportunities, different types of exposure. So and that's all good, man. So we can talk about it all night, man. We're gonna move on to one of our favorite segments: is what are you mad about? And you know what? I'm gonna just say what the two things I'm mad about. I'm not going to leave it out because I know Eric's going to say something about it. I'm going to beat him to the punch. First, I'm mad about how our season's going, but we're going to bounce back. I believe in my Jayhawks. I'm mad about that. Cowboys didn't make it any better. That's a whole nother thing in itself. And I'm mad that I'm down in our NCAA challenge, 7-4. I think that's the count. So I don't, I've got bigger fish to fry. Kansas start winning, then I'll probably start winning a little more too. So what are you mad about, Eric?
I'm mad about one of the things that, Twitter is not a real place.
Not at all.
But it is real entertainment. And one of the things that Texas fans are constantly talked about and get a rap mostly justified as just being this overbearing fan base that's always in the middle of things that fans don't need to be in the middle of. But sometimes donors and fans, sometimes we get it right. Because a story broke around the time of the coaching search that the Texas athletic director wanted Sonny Dykes as the head coach. That was his choice.
Wow.
And the donors and other people within the administration pushed back, and everyone coalesced around Steve Sarkisian. And look at where we are. Look at the output. So I'm just mad about that. We don't double back and give people their due. Because sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. We'll spin the block because a couple of other fan bases have had their voices heard too. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, that administration wanted to really push for Josh Heupel. The fan base wanted Brent Venables. Time will tell. Mm-hmm. Texas A&M, the administration and coaching staff had hired Mark Stoops. That fan base had their voice heard.
And a move was made. That was crazy.
Yeah. Hired him. Signed a letter of intent and everything. Yeah. Crazy. But that's why we're us and they're them. But no, I'm just mad about nobody. We talk about accountability, and we talked about accountability a lot in the last segment, but I just wanted to spin the block and say sometimes we get it right.
So I'm gonna jump right to it, man. I know you finally got back in town, settled, and you had a chance to go attend in person the Texas ULM game. So tell me about it, man.
It was as expected. The team was locked in from beginning to end, other than one run that honestly spits out. I think they had a total of 111 yards, period. So
Jesus.
without that
Total offense?
run,
Wow.
no, yeah, total.
Yeah.
So I think without that run, they're probably under 50 yards. 50 total yards of offense.
Wow.
When you take out that one play, which anybody can do that, take out one play of every game. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think again, as I predicted, shout out to the ULM defensive staff for giving those kids something to focus on, giving those kids something to lock in on. I'm desperately waiting on Mississippi State to do the same thing. It's an ultimate trap game because you're getting ready to head into a bye week where you're going to give all your focus and attention to Oklahoma and Georgia. Mississippi State is banged up. We'll talk about that matchup here in a minute, man. But we played a clean game. 7 penalties, I think 50 yards, 7 penalties for 50 yards, 500 yards total offense. We talked about what they did on defense. I thought this was the perfect Arch Manning game that we needed as a fan base. I knew it, but I think we all know what the hype and whatnot was around Arch. So it was the perfect amount of he had success, he had failures, he had a great response to those failures. But I think it is crystal clear to writ large that Arch Manning could not probably take this Texas team to a national championship this year where Quinn Ewers could.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best thing to come out of this game is that it quells a little bit of that hype
Controversy
in the
talk,
background.
yeah.
It was never a controversy because
people still want
credit to Steve Sarkisian who stamped that out at every turn. I think in the post game he talked about we've got, without being prompted, he said we've got a championship caliber team and Quinn Ewers is the driver of that team, and just consistently reinforcing that, which probably is what allows, and they really do have a great relationship in the locker room. They really do, support one another, and Quinn really does try to lean in and teach and be an asset to Arch. But the game was what it was supposed to be, and this is kind of looking back to last year versus this year. This is what you want your team to do. We talked about, I told you this about Kansas. I talked about this in regards to Texas last year. I'm a huge believer in teams. When programs are being built the right way, they go into phases of, big/bad losses. To the next year, it's close losses. To the year after that, it's close wins. Then the year after that, if you're a good program, you start to step on people's necks and blow out the bad teams that don't belong there with you. So we've seen that. I want to see this upcoming week. Granted, it is an overmatched opponent that is injured. You know me. I'm very superstitious. I'm a big believer in, when you back somebody into a corner, you don't know what the hell they're gonna do.
No doubt.
They can poke you in the eyes,
spit on you, kick
you. They're gonna do anything they can. Because it's not winning and losing anymore. I'm fighting for my life.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State, it probably is the most carefree they have been all week, all year thus far. There's no pressure on them. All they have to do is come out and do the best they can. And I can't reiterate enough how dangerous that is.
Yeah. With a 38.5 point spread. I mean, being
you're gonna win.
Underdog,
you're gonna win, but what I look for is, are you going to be able to get your backup reps and all those things against SEC competition? Are you going to be able to handle the hype when there's thus far as of today, there's no external motivation, there's no national, there's no tie into anything other than this is one of the weeks where it is truly you versus you.
Yeah.
And that'll tell me a lot about the program. Can they play to the standard? Can you, come through this game injury free? Can you execute on all the goals? Can you keep? I would love that's when games like this, that's the real win. Can you keep Mississippi State out of the end zone? Can you keep them under 150 total yards on
You
offense?
talking about setting like other goals within the goal of winning, just
Correct.
goal.
Because winning is
that's all it is, goals.
I do believe in I do believe in that there is, a world where you just don't got the dogs. You can probably scare us a little. You probably can come in and on your absolute best effort, you can put a 10 to 17 point scare together, but you just don't have the dogs to win the game.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's it. And we don't, Mississippi State on paper and probably the way they played are going to be better than ULM, UTSA, and so on. But I wondered,
they better than Colorado State?
56-0. What was the score of it?
It was 56-0 versus Texas.
Yeah. Yes.
But if Colorado State played Toledo, who wins?
Are you comparing?
If ULM plays Toledo, who wins?
Yeah.
Right. So I say that to say that I don't for one second think that I know this personally as a Texas fan. Just because you play at a certain school, entitles you to absolutely nothing.
But like you just said it though. You said it about showing the type of championship team you are, and maybe Mississippi State's just not there. Like Texas has had 3 weeks or 2 weeks of, they're not trap games, but like games where you could fall into a deep hole of a lull, underestimation in UTSA and ULM. Now, when you're kind of a lower caliber team on paper, I'll just say on paper right now, under like Mississippi State is not Texas. So maybe you don't have that leadership, that experience, those things that prevent those things from happening, like what happened against Toledo, with Mississippi State. Like Texas didn't allow that to happen against the last 3-4 opponents. So, not necessarily because of the name, but because of the caliber of the team, because of the leadership, because of the preparation, because of those things that you get ready for, and how those kids can handle it, opposed to them not being able to handle it. So I think that's another caveat of it, as far as like, I don't know if Texas is getting bored, but the roller coaster is about to start going down.
I think, and this is just from seeing them, being around them, hearing the coaches, I think they are as excited as I've ever heard a Texas program to be able to go and show it.
Yeah. It's new. It's new.
and it is new, and it is exciting, and it is, you're going to hate the analogy, but it is, I am always down to play college football. Why? Because I think I'm pretty doggone good. And I think I'm going to win almost every game I play. I probably go into every game I play thinking I'm going to win. Whether that ends up being true or not is a different question. But it is that kind of feeling that I'm always interested. I'm always locked in. It's always fun because I always think I'm better than who I'm playing. And I want to go show that to the world. So can you do it? Can you continue to execute when things get bored, right? When things get boring. And I look forward to, I want to see how the coaching staff reacts. Are you locked in the fourth quarter of a blowout game like Nick Saban? One of my absolute favorite, inside access clips is, I forget who they're playing, but they are up 48 points,
and he's coaching.
And in the fourth quarter, and he's coaching hard. They sub late. They were on defense. Alabama was on defense. They were supposed to switch to a nickel package, and Nick Saban is like, nickel, and they can't. And he runs and calls a timeout, and he jumps on everybody, coaches included.
It matters, little things matter.
And it was 38 seconds left in the game. And I'm like, are we there? And as a fan, that's what I'm excited about. Are we there?
Because he believes, and I'm gonna end it on this, because he knows and believes. Because, like, say, some person may look like, golly, coach, 38 seconds. Some people may say you got the game won, but he, with the experience, standard, the way excellence, he knows that it wasn't about that moment right there. He looking like somewhere along the line, that's going to hurt us in a tighter situation or in a situation where we need that sub and you're not locked in. I don't care what the score is. We do what we do no matter who. Like I say, it's not about them, it's about us.
Cue the funeral music and tell me about the Jayhawks.
My aunt got this from me when she went to Las Vegas. Nah. Let me tell you, I love them. Obviously a spotlight is on them because this is part of the reason of the show. I'm an ex-player, I'm an alum, but it's hard, and no negativity, no finger pointing, and I think when you coaching is one way. When you're a fan and you don't know, obviously that's the loudest voice, and that's the things you're gonna see and hear. But as a coach and an ex-player, man, I think it boils down to the players holding each other accountable, not making excuses as far. And I don't want to say making excuses. You pick your teammates up and you build them up and you hold them down. But sooner or later, we need to have that locker room talk about, okay, what are we doing? Who is not doing their job?
Past time for a players only meeting.
Well, the coaches can't. People like to blame things on the coaches. I could put you in, and coaches always said the most a coach can do as far as like scouting and knowing tendencies and breaking stuff down is putting players in the best positions to be successful. I can't hold the ball for you. I can't, take care of your ball security. And when I say that, I don't control your brain. I've coached you on where to go, what to read, what to do. And that's passing, that's running, that's, running routes. That's, on the defensive side of, coverages and what they've done. So, it's tough, man. And it's tough to lose the same way. Third game in a row, we've lost the fourth quarter lead. I think, I don't know the time, but, ESPN is, the world we live in, everything's so live and updated. But at one time, the win probability at certain times of a game, it's been 100% for Kansas, UNLV, Illinois, and not in West Virginia, and then at the end of the game is 0 because we done lost. It always ends up in a turnover.
So what's so tie it all together. What's the common thread between all three losses?
The easy answer, people are going to say it's the quarterback. People are going to say it's the quarterback. He threw an interception late in the Illinois game. He turned the ball over at the end. But you know what? Some people say the left tackle got beat, which he did. But let's stay on West Virginia real quick. Let's jump forward. And as a team, we can't give up 15 points in 5 minutes. I'm sorry. We gave up 15 points in the fourth quarter within 3 minutes. I'm sorry, 3 minutes and 27 seconds. We gave up 15 points. And you can see the tightness. I could feel it. Maybe because I was like, we're going to get a win. We're going to get a win. But as a player, you got to you got to play the game. You got to keep doing what you've been doing that got you the lead, but, second game in a row where the quarterback was the leading rusher and obviously the leading passer, but that just lends itself to us. It's little things. If it's not a DB covering or tackling this guy, it's a linebacker missing the tackle. It's just I think it goes to me individual accountability. Do your job first. Do your job first, and everything else will take care of itself. Silver cloud is starting to hang over. Success has been there, but it's not commonplace yet. We're just 2 years removed from being 2-10. And so you start to get that feel, that tightness again, where, oh Lord, here we go again. And people say ugly stuff. Oh, I just wait till basketball season, all this stuff. And people jump ship. And I know Kobe Bryant obviously had some frustrations, and he, thank God social media wasn't out when I was a player. But like Kansas should probably be 4-0. They should be 4-0. With the teams that they played and how we've played. That's hard to explain any other way. That's hard to say, well, what's the answer? I just told you, everybody's got to do their job, because we got to do it 4 quarters, because we're not doing it because there's a breakdown. And if we need to just drill a whole fourth quarter scenario, then let's drill a whole fourth quarter scenario, because that's kind of where we've dropped the ball. No pun intended. But, we've got to really just, look at each other in the mirror, man, eye to eye, and say, it's us. It's us. It's us against us. And, and 1-3 right now, that's a bad taste, because it's not going to get any easier, because, you got a TCU team who came off a pretty tough butt whipping themselves. Now, you can throw some different incentive and excitement first game in Arrowhead, but what is it going to look like? All these negative, naysayers, like, oh, they're not going to even be able to fill it up now because they're 1-3. With, I led off this segment, or I led off the show talking about love, commitment, loyalty, and things like that. So, the Jayhawk faithful needs to know that the season's it's not over. But you know what? That black hood is starting to poke itself out the top if we don't get ourselves together, because things.
So when you say the season is not over,
Mm-hmm.
give me the context to that, because when I look,
go ahead. Okay, I know what you're gonna say.
When I look from the outside in,
playoffs
probably off the table.
But a bowl game is still
a
successful season where we are right now as a program. You can't just say two bowl. Oh, we went to bowl games 2 years in a row. But
I'm saying that because, and I'm not encouraging you all to become like the Texas faithful at all, but I know that you can't win. Would y'all win 10 last year or 9?
9.
You can't win 9 and double back with 7 or 8. It's hard to even do 9 and 9.
Well, maybe I will say maybe at places like Texas, but I think when you look, it depends on how you're looking at it. If you're looking at Kansas on how they started off, and then you say you regrouped and you knocked off 7 wins in a row, then that's going to have a different taste. Opposed
that
to
is true.
Maybe
that is true, because in those 7 you'll have some.
That's what I'm saying. Like, then the season ends on a high note. Yeah. And you kind of got it fixed and you're trending upward still, and with a postseason game. Now, if it's on the other end, you're 6-0 and all of a sudden you let go 5 in a row, and because if you're 6-0, then you're starting to be in the conversation of, okay, got a chance to win the conference. That means you probably got a chance to get in the playoff, depending on where you are ranked or whatever. But that's not the conversation right now. The conversation needs
to be, if you drop any of your next 3, I'm looking at the schedule now. If you drop any of the next 3, season's probably over.
Yeah, and it does get easier. You got to go.
Well, this next State. 3, you've got TCU,
Arizona State.
You've got a good an okay Arizona State team.
Yeah.
You've got a bad Houston team.
Yeah.
Then you got a 4-game stretch on you.
Over here in Lawrence, this game is the only game, and you need to start having those types of conversations where let's go 1-0.
You just want to win.
Let's scrap, 1-0, and you got to scrap it, and and just looking ahead to TCU. I mean, they've got a new DC. They're 6th in the nation in passing offense. If I want to say that right, Kendall Briles is their OC there. But they're 99th in the nation in rushing defense. So that kind of plays into our strength, or it needs to be our strength, running the ball. And we got, I think we need to run a little harder with more intent, as far as, just I saw some seams, I saw some opportunities there that we probably didn't take advantage of. I'm not there. Kids could be playing, with banged up things. These for me to be an armchair quarterback. So I'm never gonna fall into the position of some of these other people that say, "Hey, oh, they're not doing this." You don't know. So they're 121st in rushing offense in the nation. TCU. Obviously, they're an air raid team that throw the ball. The quarterback's got over 1,400 yards passing already in 4 games. They did take a drubbing from SMU. I think SMU put 66 on them last week. I know the coach got
thrown out of the game.
Yeah, the coach got thrown out the game. We haven't played since we haven't played in 2 years since game day came. Both teams were undefeated. It was a big deal, and they end up getting the win on that. So, just thinking about numbers, but I didn't talk about a lot of numbers. I'm not going to talk about the what ifs. Even as bad as I feel, because I'm a fan, I love Kansas. We're not a bad team. We're still in our own way, and we still open up right now. I think we're like a 2-point favorite, you know what I'm saying, going into the game. Um, that doesn't mean anything to me because you still got to play and you got to play 4 quarters.
As a
So
degenerate gambler, that's still a pick 'em.
yeah, exactly. And I'd say I could care less, but I love our coaching staff, our leadership. Some people, Coach Lipo came in 2-10, then we go 6-7, and then we win 9 the next year. And so I think people think that it's supposed to get better. There's every team is different. Every challenge is going to be different from year to year. Sometimes challenges take a little longer to figure out, but once you find it, you roll with it. And it's a long season. You need to only take care of your 4 walls, and wherever the chips fall with everybody else is where they fall, because we could go into a whole thing about what we didn't expect to happen for other teams, but that's not the case. Every man's got to do their job. I promise you, I put this on everything I know and love. If everybody does their job, and I mean seeing guys go through the whistle, seeing guys sure tackling, seeing guys not being lazy, taking plays off, play hard. We're not in a position to do that. If you need a blow for something, come out, go back in. But I believe in our leadership. I believe in our leadership top to bottom.
That's important.
And everybody else should too, and the only silver lining I'm going to give people out there that has been so hard on it is that I understand what the expectation was, because it was different. It's a different expectation going into the season opposed to it's just a new season for Kansas football and we'll see what happens. It was the expectation of, we have a chance to compete for the Big 12 championship. We have a chance to possibly now get in the playoff if we do win the Big 12 championship. Okay, now that those are not the conversations, now what? But
at the end of the day, crazier things have happened. There's only one loss. It's highly unlikely.
Yeah,
but
but we'll see. And it's the end of September. When we're talking in the middle of November, who knows? Like I say, but you gotta take care of home. You gotta take care of what's inside the 4 walls. I don't want to talk no more about it because I could break something. But we're gonna get into some chalk talk right now. So check this out. Okay, we're going to get into some chalk talk right here. Looking at a play from about 2 years ago, last time Kansas played TCU. Going to come out 12 personnel with the running back down here at the receiver. They're going to call motion, bring them to the backfield into a pistol set. Now, before we start the film, let's talk about what we have defensively. Got a 3-3-5 look personnel-wise. We got a kind of an umbrella soft coverage. What's going to happen, though, is TCU is going to play what people call a Tampa 2, where this corner right here has this flat area. This corner right here has this flat area, and he just carries until something threatens his flat responsibility. This safety here has this deep half of the field. This safety here has this deep half of the field. And this nickel, whatever they designate this guy, has the middle of the field, okay? So what's going to happen when the ball is snapped, they're going to attack this safety by high-lowing him and making him make a decision, okay? So the routes are going to be, we're going to bring this running back here into a pistol set. This tight end is going to run like a 10-yard hook or curl, whatever you want to call it. This receiver here is going to come underneath and get across and just run at the back pylon. But I'm pretty sure he was coached to probably get across to the opposite hash about 15 yards, okay? This receiver here is going to hold this safety with a dig route about 15 to 17 yards, okay? So what we got here up front O-line wise is we're going to influence to get these guys to come up. So we're going to get some GF influence counter, if you will, okay? And we're going to seal the backside with the back. You'll see here in a second. Let's take a look at it. At the play action, backers bite up, reading that backside safety. Caught him looking over the top. Touchdown. Back pylon. Let's look at the end zone view. Back Comes set. Seals off the edge with a chip. Looks off the safety. Touchdown. All right, here we go. So about 20 plays later into the game, on the plus 29, 28, 29-yard line, same play we just talked about, but now we're in a different personnel set, different formation, a 2-by-1. So here we go. So what's gonna happen right here? We've got to already started the play. Orbit motion coming back around over here. We're gonna still influence up here to get these guys to come up with a little GF influence from the pistol set. You'll see that. So the routes change. It's become a 2-man route essentially, and we're still eyeing and attacking the safety here. We've got the same deal coverage wise and defensive personnel. What we talked about earlier, 3-3-5, Tampa 2. Okay, so remember we talked about Tampa 2. This flat area, half, and middle. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna run it, and the plays before I go, the routes, same thing. We're getting across to this opposite hash, aiming at that back pylon. What this guy's receiver's gonna do is gonna attack and put speed in his face right now, about 15 yards, and sit it down. Make him make a decision. High-low scheme. High-low. Right there. He breaks on his route. Safety breaks down. We've got inside leverage, speed in his face. We're running away from him. He actually takes 2. He takes the middle and the backside safety. Bean puts it in the air. Great placement, great catch. Same thing. Get those guys to come up on the counter influence right over the top of the backside safety. It's a great play, great scheme. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that chalk talk. So we're going to move on right now. We're going to get into some previews of the game. But first, before we do that, we're going to go into last week's picks. Eric, I hate it. Had a pretty.
All you got to do is get in with me, baby. Get in with me.
He had a pretty good week, and I'm gonna put him on the big screen. I'm gonna put him on the big screen because it was. I mean, obviously, Kansas, didn't go. That Utah Oklahoma State game was a toss up, man, and I did not see BYU doing what they did against Kansas State. Eric, I think the Mizzou game may have scared him a little bit, but besides that, it wasn't much in doubt.
I mean, we talked about it though, right? Yeah. That was a one that I'll look at, and we should get one that we could like mark. We get credit if it goes right, but also we're like, this one's a pick 'em. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, so he was undefeated, man. 10-0, 19-3 overall. 3 games down again, 15-6, man. So good job. But moving forward, this week's slate, we both highlighted the same game, even though he picks SEC games now. But like that is a early big time game right there. Just where they are in the rankings, traditionally conference game. There's so many things you could pour into it, man. But I think the over is 48 points. I don't see that many points being scored because they but who knows? I really don't. I thought at first I said no way. Then I thought about it. 24-28, that's not outlandish to think as far as like, the spread of the game, who the wins and losses, 28, 29, 27. I mean, you just don't know. So
well, here's why I think, because I think what originally goes off in your head is traditionally those two teams don't give up those kind of points.
Yes.
But I think Georgia is going to have a hell of a time keeping Milroe under wraps because Georgia's really big on defense. They are not as fast as they have been in years past, where it's kind of like a prize fight where you got one guy that's really big, you got one guy that's really athletic. So it becomes a test of whose will wins out, where does the more athletic team get an opportunity to dance and play a little faster, or does Georgia get their hands on them and maul them? You know what I mean? Either way, I think results in points because I do believe Georgia's going to be able to move the ball on the ground, fairly consistently, which will end in points. If they make Carson Beck be the reason they win, I think they could get themselves into some trouble. But I think Georgia's going to be highly motivated because this game means more to them than it does to Alabama because of how the schedule plays out. Alabama's last tough game after this is Tennessee. And everything else, every other game, they're going to be favored probably by double digits. So if Georgia wants an opportunity to they've got to beat Alabama, they've got to come to Austin, they've got to I believe they go to Knoxville as well. They've got a hell of a game, games coming up. So I highlight the game, obviously, like I said, for different reasons, because not only is it a big time game, but it'll show me, a lot. And very rarely do you, because I think the opposite is going to be true. Georgia won't see Texas's best stuff until they get to Austin. And I think Texas will see Georgia's best stuff because this game matters. And quite frankly, I think they've got to win it because and it's mental. As a coach, I remember you believe you're going to win every game. You coach every game to win, but there's always that thing in the back of your head.
What they can do as well.
That this is the one, you're planning out your season and you're saying, okay, if I'm going to drop one, where is it at?
Yeah.
And I probably, especially now, maybe not even in the beginning of the season, I have the utmost respect for Kalen DeBoer and what he's able to do. He's beat Texas twice, I think. So if you're being honest and you're Georgia and you're the coaching staff and you're looking at it and you kind of evaluate it as the year goes on. But if I'm looking at it, I'm probably like, if I'm probably more likely to drop one in Austin than in Tuscaloosa. So I got to have it.
Yeah.
Because if I lose both, my path to Atlanta is real hard. Like this Saturday, I also think it forces some coaches to go against their better angels. Steve Sarkisian has always been, he has that Mac Brown in him where he just has the utmost respect for other programs and other coaches. So he's just trying to win the game and make his team the best version of themselves and get off the field. But the way the SEC schedule and the tiebreaker set up, everybody's kind of got to turn into Steve Spurrier. You got to put it on some people so that your goals are still intact. If three of those four teams ended up undefeated at the end of the season, as is a very real possibility, that's what it'll come down to. Margin of victory.
And that's what I'm saying, man. It's September, man, and there's already so much at stake, and I only highlighted the game because obviously I don't have a dog in the fight, and there's two traditionally good teams, but just looking at how the South Florida Alabama game went and looking at how the Kentucky Georgia game went, I think there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered about the caliber of where these two teams are going up against one another. Because South Florida, Kentucky on paper, they didn't have a chance against neither teams, and they both played the respective teams well, and had good showings. It wasn't that Alabama played so bad or Georgia played so bad. That Kentucky D-line was getting after Georgia, so there's some questions just as far as like caliber of what prestige level are these two teams playing at. So that's why I highlighted the game. I look forward to it's gonna be fun. I'm always gonna ride for them, and not blindly. This is not the Kansas of old where you're like, you're just going for them because that's your team and you went there. No, we've got a legit team. We've got a legit team that can beat TCU. So we still got to go do it. We had teams that could beat UNLV. We had a team that could beat Illinois. We had a team that could beat West Virginia. But you got to go do it. Right. Great discussion, man. I think the NIL, man, that's gonna be forever developing, and I don't know what's going on with this what's the real answer. I don't want to go back into the discussion, but I know there was there was a real, there's a lot of discrepancies on it.
I don't think there's a perfect answer. So though.
But I'm in that UNLV situation where it said UNLV met their obligations.
Oh, what's the truth?
Yeah, what's the truth? Yeah,
did he get what he was promised versus
they met
did he go back and ask? I'm not
exactly.
I tend to believe the most reasonable story, and I have a hard time believing that a kid who only completes 30% of his passes, 40% of his passes, if we go to the high end of it, had the audacity to go back and ask for more, to the extent to where he'd sit out. I think it's probably the latter of he just didn't get what he's promised. Good on him for one, having the awareness to know this is my only best shot at making real money off of this. And two, I just, me, I'm a big personal pride guy. And I think just as a man, I got pride, and you're not going to just step on me with impunity. If you tell me you're going to do something and I see you doing it for everybody else. Now, let's say, the collective falls apart, people getting indicted, the money dries up, so nobody's getting paid. So then we got to sit across and
you got to kind of
have this conversation about, are we doing this for the love of the game and the love of the team? That's one thing. But if I'm sitting back and it's literally, we've all been in this situation, probably personally. Somebody owes you money and they're not giving you the money that they owe you, but every time you see them, they got a new pair of Gators on. They got a new, they in some,
offering to buy everybody drinks. Offering to buy everybody drinks.
Yeah. So I get it. And so maybe that's because personally leaning, I know 100% this is how I would handle this situation. So I'm probably biased.
Yeah. And I hate that it comes down to it, because, that this is even the issue, that all of a sudden you're rolling, things are going well, for you. And
undeniably. Yeah. And as a Kansas fan, it should really make you mad, because that loss is going to end up looking a lot worse than it should, because this is going to cost UNLV games.
Yeah. Oh, no
because
doubt.
It just throws so much division and so much
distractions and how strong is that team.
And as a coaching staff, I would love, I've got some connections to Brennan, so I would love to ask him, because at a point, doesn't it become worth it to just give him the money?
No doubt.
Even if he himself is not worth it, it becomes worth it, because now knowing how you have to play this game in recruiting, your word, because now until kids get here and sign the paper,
that's another
your
problem.
Word is all they have.
Yeah.
But now you have two kids saying your word is dirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
That impedes not only this season, but that impedes your ability to recruit the kind of kids you're going to have to recruit in the future.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely look to see how this develops, and we'll definitely probably speak on it a little more next week.
We may have to do an emergency podcast.
Hey, we'll do a live. Yeah, hey, I'm down for that, man. But as always, man, I appreciate you, man. We'll look forward to talking again and see how things go, man. We're gonna hold our head high, baby, because it's Rock Chalk Pride. But we appreciate y'all. Man. We appreciate y'all, man. As always, Rock Chalk.
Praise the Lord and hook 'em horns.
All right, see y'all.
Hey, see y'all.